I never thought I'd go to war with my best friend over a guy, but then again, I never thought we'd fall for the same one. It started like every cliché romance story, two best friends, an undeniably charming guy, and an unspoken competition that neither of us wanted to admit was happening. Savannah and I had been inseparable since the 6th grade. We survived awkward teenage years, college heartbreaks, and questionable fashion choices together. We had a code, an unbreakable bond, and the one rule we always swore by: no guy would ever come between us. That was before Nathan Reynolds walked into our lives. It was the summer after college, and we were both in that weird limbo between being kids and fully functional adults. Savannah had landed a marketing job in the city, while I was still figuring things out, bouncing between part-time gigs, and pretending I wasn't completely lost. Nathan worked at the local bookstore, and the first time we saw him, we were completely unprepared. He was the type of guy who looked like he belonged in a rom-com, dark curls that always seemed to fall just right, a jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and an easy smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Savannah and I had wandered into the bookstore one rainy afternoon, killing time before a movie. We were soaked, laughing about something stupid, when Nathan looked up from behind the counter. "Rough day?" he asked, smirking. That was all it took. One smirk, one stupidly charming interaction, and suddenly, Savannah and I were both smitten. At first, we didn't talk about it. We both pretended we weren't interested, because acknowledging it would mean facing something we weren't ready to deal with. But over the next few weeks, it became painfully obvious. Every time we were near him, we both tried a little harder. She laughed just a little louder, I fixed my hair a little more often. She lingered at the counter, I found excuses to ask him for book recommendations. Then, one night, the unspoken war officially began. Savannah and I were out for drinks, our usual Friday night tradition, when she dropped the bombshell. Nathan asked me out. I froze, my cocktail halfway to my lips. What? She grinned, clearly expecting me to be excited. I know, right? We were talking about books, and then he just asked if I wanted to grab coffee this weekend. I forced a smile, even as my stomach twisted into knots. That's great. Savannah didn't notice the crack in my voice. She was too busy gushing about how unexpected it was, how cute he was, how much she was looking forward to it. And that's when I knew, I had to do something. I told myself it wasn't betrayal. I told myself it was just leveling the playing field. So the next day, I went to the bookstore alone. Nathan was there, as I knew he would be. "Hey, stranger," he said, flashing me that damn smile. I leaned against the counter, my heart pounding. "So, I hear you're taking Savannah out this weekend." His expression shifted, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. "Yeah. Is that weird?" I shrugged. "Not weird. Just surprising. I mean, I thought maybe you and I had something." I didn't know what I was expecting, but when he tilted his head and really looked at me, I realized I had just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. "Did we?" he asked. And just like that, I knew I had started something I wasn't ready to finish. I wish I could say I walked away from that conversation with my dignity intact, but that would be a lie. Nathan didn't immediately answer my half-confession, and the silence between us stretched long enough for regret to settle deep in my bones. I had no plan, no graceful way to undo what I'd just done. So I did the only thing I could. I doubled down. "Well," I said, forcing a casual smile, "I just thought, you know, with the way we talk, the way we click, maybe you felt it too." Nathan leaned against the counter, studying me with those sharp eyes of his. "I mean, you're not wrong. I like talking to you." I felt a flicker of hope, right before he added, "I like talking to Savannah too." The flicker turned into a full-blown fire, burning away my self-control. "You're really going to go on a date with her if you're not sure?" I asked, my voice softer now, laced with something I wasn't proud of. "You don't think that's unfair?" His lips parted slightly, like he was about to respond, but before he could, the door chimed behind us. Savannah. Of course. Because the universe had a twisted sense of humor. She was holding a coffee in one hand, sunglasses perched on her head, and when she saw us, her smile faltered just the tiniest bit. "What's going on?" she asked, her eyes bouncing between us. Nathan straightened up immediately. "Hey, Save. Just chatting with your best friend here." Save. He already had a nickname for her. Savannah shot me a look, one eyebrow arched, and I could practically hear the question in her head. What were you doing here alone with him? I needed to get out of there before I said something even worse. I was just leaving, I said, grabbing the nearest book from the display shelf without even looking at it. See you guys later. And then I walked out, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I barely made it 2 blocks before my phone buzzed with a text from Savannah. Savannah, what the hell was that? I didn't answer. Because what was I supposed to say? That I had gone behind her back and tried to convince the guy she liked to pick me instead? That I was breaking the one rule we'd sworn never to break? Instead, I went home, curled up in bed, and stared at my ceiling, knowing I had just started a war. The next few days were tense. Savannah and I didn't fight, not openly, at least. But there was a shift, a barely concealed edge to our conversations. She still went on her date with Nathan, and I still pretended it didn't bother me. When she came back that night, she sat on my couch, kicking off her heels, and gave me a look. So, she said, drawing out the word. Do you want to tell me what's going on? I shrugged, flipping through channels like I wasn't hanging on to every word she said. What do you mean? She sighed. You know exactly what I mean. I'm not stupid, and I know you went to see him. I swallowed hard. So what if I did? Savannah narrowed her eyes. Did you try to talk him out of going out with me? I hesitated for half a second too long. Her face fell, the realization crashing over her. You did. Save. Oh my God, she laughed, but it wasn't the kind of laugh I liked hearing. It was sharp, bitter. I can't believe this. I sat up, suddenly feeling defensive. You can't believe what? That I like him too. That I didn't want to just sit back and watch you get everything without even trying? Her eyes widened. Is that what this is about? You think I always get everything? I didn't answer. Because maybe I did think that, just a little. Savannah had always been the one people noticed first. She had the kind of confidence that drew people in, made them feel lucky just to be in her orbit. Me? I was always the quieter one, the second choice. For the first time, I wanted to be the first choice. You know what? She said, standing up. If this is how you're going to be, then fine. Let's just be honest about it. I stared at her. What do you mean? If we're both into him, then let's stop pretending we're not competing. No more secrets. No more side conversations. May the best girl win. I let out a sharp breath. You really want to do this? She crossed her arms. Yeah. I do. The air between us felt heavier than it ever had before. This was officially a war. And neither of us was backing down. I used to think Savannah and I were the kind of friends who could survive anything. We'd been through so much together, breakups, career struggles, family drama. But it turned out, all it took was one guy to tear us apart. After she declared our competition official, things started to change between us. Subtly at first. We still hung out, still sent each other memes and texted daily, but everything had an edge to it now. Every casual conversation about Nathan felt like a battle report. Every little comment felt like a strategic move. Savannah made sure I knew when she was texting him. I made sure she knew when he was laughing at my jokes at the bookstore. It was exhausting, pretending we were okay when we both knew we weren't. And Nathan? He had no idea. Or maybe he did. Maybe he liked the attention. Because he wasn't choosing. He kept talking to both of us, acting like nothing had changed. One day, he'd flirt with Savannah over coffee, and the next, he'd compliment my taste in books and ask about my weekend plans. I should have been angry at him, but the truth was, I wanted to win. And if that meant playing this stupid game, then so be it. The night things really exploded was a Saturday. Savannah and I were at a party, trying way too hard to pretend we weren't watching Nathan. He was there with a group of friends, casually leaning against the kitchen counter, looking unfairly attractive in a dark gray sweater. He wasn't with either of us, which somehow made it worse. We both wanted his attention, and we were both failing miserably at hiding it. I don't even remember who made the first move. Maybe it was Savannah, laughing just a little too loudly at something he said. Or maybe it was me, brushing past him in the hallway, my fingers lingering on his arm just a second too long. Either way, the tension snapped. 1 minute, we were two best friends sipping drinks and making small talk. The next, we were in the backyard, yelling at each other like lunatics. "What the hell is your problem?" Savannah demanded, her arms crossed. "My problem?" I scoffed. "You're the one acting like this is some kind of reality TV show. You tried to sabotage my date with him," she shot back. "You went behind my back, and now you're mad that I'm still winning?" Winning. The word hit me harder than I expected. "Wow," I said, shaking my head. "So that's what this is about? Keeping score?" Savannah let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, don't act all innocent now. You're the one who started this." "I started this?" I repeated, incredulous. "You're the one who threw our friendship away the second he smiled at you." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she sighed, rubbing her temples. "Is this really worth it?" I swallowed hard. "I don't know. Is it?" We stared at each other, two best friends who suddenly felt like strangers. The answer hung between us, unspoken. No. It wasn't worth it. But neither of us was ready to admit that yet. So instead, we turned and walked back inside, still locked in a war we didn't know how to end. I don't know when the competition started feeling less like a game and more like a slow, mutual destruction. At first, it was just little things, digs disguised as jokes, subtle power moves, pointed comments about how Nathan had texted one of us first. But then, it turned into something uglier. We stopped hanging out one-on-one. We stopped trusting each other. Every conversation felt like we were walking on a tightrope, balancing between pretending everything was fine and waiting for the other to slip. Nathan, as usual, remained blissfully unaware. Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he knew exactly what he was doing, stringing both of us along, soaking up the attention. But the moment that shattered everything came one Friday night. Savannah and I had both been invited to a small gathering at Nathan's place. It wasn't a party, just a few people, wine, music. Low-key. And it was a disaster waiting to happen. I should have backed out. I should have stayed home, let Savannah have this one, let things cool down. But I didn't. Because at that point, winning felt more important than fixing what we had broken. Nathan was in the kitchen when I arrived, pouring a glass of wine, his face lighting up when he saw me. "Hey," he said, handing me a glass. "Glad you made it." I felt Savannah's eyes on us from across the room. I pretended not to care. We made small talk, books, weekend plans, the usual, and I told myself that this meant something. That I was winning. That he liked me more. Then Savannah walked over, and everything fell apart. I don't know how it started. One second, we were all laughing, and the next, she was making some pointed comment about how Nathan clearly has a thing for girls who play mind games. I snapped back with something just as sharp. And suddenly, we weren't talking to Nathan anymore. We were talking at each other, all the months of resentment and unspoken anger boiling over in the middle of his kitchen. "I can't believe you would do this to me," Savannah said, her voice shaking. "After everything. You think this is just me?" I shot back. "You wanted a war, save. And congratulations, you got one." Nathan stared between us, realization dawning on his face. "Wait," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Are you fighting over me?" Savannah and I froze. And for the first time in months, I saw the situation from the outside. Two best friends, tearing each other apart over a guy who hadn't even chosen. A guy who had been casually dating both of us, soaking up the attention while we ripped our friendship to shreds. Savannah must have realized it too, because she let out a humorless laugh. "Oh my God," she muttered. "We're idiots." The tension in the room cracked, and suddenly, we weren't enemies anymore. We were two exhausted people who had been so focused on winning that we had lost sight of what actually mattered. Nathan opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. "You know what?" I said, setting my drink down. "You can have him, Savannah." She snorted. "No thanks. I'm over it." Nathan blinked. "Wait, what?" I turned to Savannah. "Do you want to get out of here?" She hesitated for half a second before nodding. Yeah, I do." And just like that, the war was over. We left Nathan standing in his own kitchen, speechless, while we walked out together, just like we should have from the very beginning. Epilogue, back to us. it took some time to fully repair what had been broken. There were still hurt feelings, still things we had to talk through, but we did. Because the truth was, no guy, not even one as charming as Nathan Reynolds, was worth losing our friendship over. A few weeks later, we ran into him again at a cafe. He looked surprised to see us sitting together, laughing like nothing had ever happened. I smiled at him. Savannah raised her coffee in a mock toast. And we both moved on. Because at the end of the day, best friends should never go to war over a guy. And if they do, they should always make sure they're on the same side when the dust finally settles. Thank you for watching the video, like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.